Hello, it's Liz. Um, Hi. It's been a while. I want to say hi to all my new subscribers because a lot of people have been subscribing while I have been not really producing any content, and that makes me feel good about my work. Um, so thank you. Uh, I I don't know that I'll be putting out very much more content at all, but one thing did occur to me to say recently, and it was what I'm going to say. Um, okay, so I'm assuming that you, the audience, already kind of have a basic understanding of what autism is. Um, and a big part of it, of course, is having difficulty reading social cues, having difficulty understanding the ways that people expect us to behave socially, especially when it comes to communication and other things. And for autistic people like me, who might be considered high functioning, although I'm not going to go into why that is not the best way of framing things. For people like me, we do learn a lot as we get older about what those expectations are and how to recognize various social cues. We pick things up. But still, I just want to put it out there that if you are friends with or especially romantically involved with somebody who's autistic, no matter how that presents for them, maybe they seem very normal, very charming, and can blend in. Still, one of the biggest things that you can do to be a friend, um, to to support and love us, is to just like tell us what the fuck is going on. You know, seriously, like what the fuck is going on? Like, don't don't take for granted that in a social situation that we actually understand what you're communicating if you're communicating it indirectly. I mean, we might figure it out, and you don't need to be condescending about it because we might have picked up on the thing, but we also may not have. And one of the most damaging things you can do to somebody who's autistic is to leave them in the dark, especially during a conflict. If you have a conflict with somebody who's autistic and you give a single shit about them, like just a little bit of a shit, just a tiny bit, you should tell them what the fuck is going on. Like, seriously. Tell them what happened. Why are you upset? How are you feeling? Set boundaries if you need to. Be clear. Clearly set them. Because I've had people, people that I cared about a lot, withdraw from communication altogether. And there's not much you can do that's more psychologically painful to an autistic person. Seriously, there's not much you can do. Even communicating your feelings in the most violent, brutal, explicit way possible would be less hurtful than leaving us in the dark to wonder what the fuck is going on. Most of us have experienced situations where people started ignoring us or started treating us a certain kind of way. And what many of us have learned from those experiences is that when people do that, they are trying to hurt you. They are trying to hurt you, because most of us have been bullied on some level. Most of us have experienced that. And most of us have experienced accidentally offending people and having them turn their backs on us. So when you leave us in the dark to wonder what's going on, we're probably going to assume the worst possible scenario, because that has been our experience. Now, in general, it's like good to communicate to people that you give a shit about, right? Like, it's not just specifically an autistic thing. Like, if you really love people and you want them in your life, it's generally good advice to communicate to them when things come up, good and bad. I'm not just talking about conflicts either. I'm also talking about, like, if you really like somebody and you're not, like, saying that explicitly, if you really like and care about an autistic person and they matter to you, you should tell them that. And show it through your actions. It's really important, because most of us, we might make it look like we've got a handle on our social lives, and that might be true to some extent, but most of us are in some level of anxiety all the time because we don't know how we're coming off. And every little bit of feedback we get, we try to figure out what it means, direct and indirect. And that can look really different for different autistic people. But I know for me, it's like an ongoing calculus of who responds to what in what way. And I don't keep very good track of it either. But I'm trying to. I'm always trying to, like, intellectually grasp where I'm at with people, where they're at with me. If you really want to save us, like, a lot of anxiety and a lot of that fucking work, please just, like, tell us what's going on. Don't make us wonder. And don't assume just because, like, don't assume that we understand what we did wrong either. I mean, it's not as though autistic people are without fault or without blame, you know. We definitely are assholes sometimes, and sometimes we're doing things to be assholes. But also, often enough, we do things and they upset people, and we genuinely, like, it would not have occurred to us ever that would be a thing. Like, we had, you know, I often wind up in the situation where, like, somebody is upset or reacting in a certain way, in a certain upset way, I guess, to something that I've done or something that I've said, and it is just completely left field for me. Like, I just would never have anticipated that action would be hurtful or upsetting to anyone. Because to me, it just seems neutral. And a lot of times neurotypicals very much assume that we are, like, trying to be hurtful. um, when we're not. And something else to keep in mind too is that we definitely can, again, like, we're people, and we're whole people, and if we're adults, then we're adults, and we definitely can do our own indirect communication or do things that are manipulative or shitty. It can happen, but it also very often happens that we're not. um, and it's really helpful to be able to communicate about that instead of assuming that we have the worst possible intent. When we do things, it's good to look at them in their most, I don't want to say literal, because I think people say that autistic people are literal, and some autistic people are. I am not. Like, I'm sarcastic a lot. I use metaphor a lot. I'm not completely literal about everything I'm saying, and often enough I'm joking around, But there still is a great degree to which neurotypicals read subtext into what I'm saying that isn't there. And I don't know how a neurotypical can work on, like, being thoughtful about that, or trying to take things that autistic people do and say more at face value. It's safe to generally assume that, like, when we say something, we're literally just saying that. We're not saying any number of other things that come to mind when you hear it or read it. We're literally just specifically saying what we said. Does that make sense? Anyway, I hope this little rant, that is obviously very personal for me, is of use to somebody who's, like, trying to be an ally, because I swear, I'm so over the extent to which neurotypicals are not, and not just neurotypicals, but non-autistic people, allistics, if you will, are consistently sort of unaware of how autistic brains function. You know, there are ways we can accidentally be hurtful to you, as I've discussed, and there's also ways you can be accidentally hurtful to us. And it would be great if we could just, like, sit down and figure that shit out in a direct communicative way. But when autistic people assume that we're just like non-autistic people, then we can't do that, because then it's assumed that we're just like these horrible toxic assholes who must clearly be trying to say X, Y, and Z, and clearly have X, Y, and Z intentions, and it's just not true. It's just not true most of the time. So that's the work. If you want to be an ally, that's part of your work. Okay.